AMC's The Walking Dead TV show has been on our screens for almost 10 years at this point. It's broken records and amassed a huge fan base over these years. And, of course, a hate base. Despite all this, The Walking Dead isn't like a lot of other popular shows right now. Take for example Game of Thrones, which as of now in 2019 is in its 8th and last season. Since the beginning, Game of Thrones has had an ultimate goal for the conclusion of its story, an ultimate question. Who will win the war and sit on the Iron Throne? And what the hell's gonna happen with the White Walkers? Apparently nothing. Okay then. That's the goal of the story in basic terms, but it means that at some point someone will win the throne and the White Walkers will arrive and the show will end. That's the story, and that's what the whole series has been building to. The Walking Dead's ultimate story question, on the other hand, has pretty much been whittled down to who will survive the zombie apocalypse. You could equally also say, though, who keeps their humanity in the apocalypse. But it's pretty obvious that this is a far more vague and open question in comparison to Game of Thrones'. The war for the Iron Throne can't go forever. The contenders for the throne obviously want to sit on it in their lifetime, so they're not going to waste that much time trying to get it, which will usually result in someone losing and dying and someone else progressing up the ranks of power. And this is all especially the case with the impending White Walker attack. We as an audience know that both of these conflicts will end and that will be the end of the show, because those conflicts are the show. So then, if that's what Game of Thrones is, what the hell is The Walking Dead? Well, for Robert Kirkman's graphic novel, he initially describes it as the Chronicles of Rick Grimes, the protagonist of the comics and the show. Mostly. And when I say mostly, it's because, well, as of season 9, Rick's not even in the show anymore. So this complicates things and arises a kind of identity crisis for The Walking Dead. But this isn't new. The Walking Dead has a seemingly infinitely changing identity. At first it seems like a show about Rick Grimes protecting his wife and son. Then when Laurie dies, it becomes a father and son story, right? But then Carl dies. So we're like, okay, I guess it really is the Chronicles of Rick Grimes. But then Rick leaves the show. What? What the fuck? So this is nothing new and is actually a reason a lot of viewers end up tuning out. Even I've struggled with this in the past, because it's easy to simply lose what you thought the show was about in the first place. What got people invested is no longer there. Hell, the show only has 2 remaining characters left from the first season. Everyone else is dead or gone. Ultimately though, no matter how hard it is to see, a show usually does have to have an overall purpose, an overall meaning, whether it's intentional or not. Now to be clear, I don't actually know the answer exactly. The show has changed so much over the years that none of us will really positively know the whole picture until the very last episode airs, whenever that is. But what I can do as a fan of the show is look at what we've already gotten in the show and piece together its most crucial aspects to form what I think is the overall meaning of The Walking Dead. So buckle up, folks.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Rick Grimes is the meaning of the show. But he's gone, you may say. Well, yes, but from what we've already seen of season 9, Rick Grimes' fingerprints are still everywhere despite his absence. Of course, we do have his stepdaughter, Judith Grimes, as well as his son, Little Rick Jr., but we also have a lot of the morals, lessons, and leadership from Rick Grimes' character carrying over to how our band of survivors continue on. But what does Rick Grimes mean? Well, the arc of Rick Grimes is long and complex, but ultimately it's about a good man keeping his humanity at all costs. And that's what The Walking Dead is, as well. The show, despite the depths of darkness, violence, and sadness that it plunges into often, has always had an ultimately bright outlook on our characters and their survival. There is always a hope and a light at the end for them. Season 1 has Rick choosing life over death and hope over despair for his family and group at the very end at the CDC. Season 2 is a much more darker descent for Rick, but at the heart of it, Rick is still doing what he does to protect his wife and son, and the group grows and bonds significantly, particularly over the morals of Dale, who strongly pushes for the importance of life over death. Season 3 gets even darker, where Rick loses Laurie and descends into madness, but still ultimately concludes with Rick taking in all the townspeople of Woodbury and being able to move past the death of his wife. Season 4 has Rick trying even harder to choose life over death, and in the mid-season finale Too Far Gone in particular, choosing peace over violence. This doesn't exactly work out though, and the group is separated and the prison is destroyed, but every episode in the second half is about members of the group finding each other and believing in reuniting everyone. Of course this ends up going south as well, but this takes us to Season 5. Season 5 and Season 4 are arguably the darkest days for our group. Their morals are stretched and the violence only gets more brutal, and it's an intentional choice that in Season 5 a lot of our most hopeful and inspiring characters, Bob, Beth, Tyrese and Noah, are all killed off, signifying a loss of this moral goodness within the group. Rick in fact has quite a few important lines in this season which indicate this harsher change that is happening.
And then after a few years of pretending he was dead, he made it out alive. And that's the trick of it, I think. We do what we need to do, and then we get to live. That's what Bob was trying to tell me back at the church. What to risk, when it's safe, when to let someone in. The rules keep changing.
They did for me.
At the end of the season though, despite how gruesome of a way Rick does it, he does gain the respect of a lot of the Alexandria community. This brings us to Season 6, where Alexandria is threatened more than ever before, but Rick inspires and leads them all together to fight back and win. He is building a greater community which works together, and there's a beautiful scene where Rick explains this to Carl.
I want to show you the new world, Carl. I want to make it a reality for you. Please. Carl. Let me show you.
This of course goes south when Rick's arrogance gets the better of him, and the arrival of Negan takes us into Season 7. But Season 7 again is very much about standing up for what's right against the tyrannical rule of Negan. It's about working together and bringing together even more communities for the betterment of all their lives and their future. Season 8 has the death of Carl, which makes this search for peace and prosperity in wartime even harder for Rick. But still, at the end, he ultimately gives up his lust for blood, and instead of killing Negan, he chooses to save him, and prove that they really are entering a new era of a better future, a new beginning. Taking us to Season 9, where Rick continues to fight to keep all the communities together and ultimately gives his life to save everyone he has worked so hard to bring together. This of course leads to some dark times, but by the end of the season, despite how much tension and violence that has taken place, Michonne agrees to form a new alliance with all their communities and to fight together against the new threat of the Whisperers. Even after the countless deaths at the hands of the Whisperers, Siddiq has a heartfelt speech about seeing the bravery of the people that died rather than the horror of what happened to them. And in the finale, there is an excellent moment where our characters simply slow down and have a plain old snow fight. They just have fun, they live, which is exactly what this show is all about. Despite how much violence and horror has taken place, it's all still ultimately about choosing life over death, peace over violence, and working together for a greater future. The Walking Dead is a hopeful show. A show about choosing the good over the bad even when there seems to be no hope at all. The line "We are the Walking Dead" is very indicative of the balance our characters try to find between their sanity and insanity, and trying to keep their humanity in such dark times. This broader meaning is also why the show is able to continue on for so long. It doesn't have an ultimate threat on the horizon or a finite amount of characters. The closest it gets to that sort of ultimate story goal is simply surviving, keeping their humanity, and ultimately reaching the final goal of building a better civilization. And not just a civilization like it used to be, but a better one than whatever came before it. Which is sort of the dream, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't say our current world is in the best of shapes. So to hit that reset button and begin anew is sort of what we wish for, and part of what makes the Walking Dead journey so enjoyable and meaningful to me. They're working towards a future that I would want to see. So given this, I'll say that it's likely the show will actually finish when our group has truly created the better future and civilization that they've been fighting for so long. And that doesn't exactly have a timer on it either. It can take as long as they want it to. Now, of course, this is all very much in broad terms. There is a lot more deep character study within these seasons about how human beings deal with this constant battle for survival. But at the end of the day, the meaning is simple. The meaning of The Walking Dead is life over death, hope over despair, peace over violence, mercy over wrath, good over the bad, and the journey to making a new and greater future full of all of this, which was all started with Rick Grimes' leadership. The Walking Dead is about living. Whew, that got real cheesy and philosophical and deep right there at the end. But that's really what I think the series is about. And I think what part of the appeal is about it. It doesn't revel in all the darkness and horror and violence. There's always still a goodness within The Walking Dead. I hope you found this informative and enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to make more of these in the future.